The movie starts with a tough, muscular guy who looks like he doesn't have any feelings, holding a big cleaver in his hand, carrying it to protect himself. Then he takes the cleaver and leaves the storage room where he was sitting. We find out that this guy's name is Skada. After a while, Skada arrives at a place that looks like a mansion, which is full of guards. We discover that this place belongs to a mafia gang called the Yakuza. At the same time, the gang leader is talking to one of his men, getting updates about their business, and we understand that there's a problem. So the boss asks his assistant to come closer, puts a knife to his face, tells him to do his job properly, and stabs him with the knife. Then he just sits down and continues drinking his tea like nothing happened. Suddenly, while he's drinking his tea, he notices drops of blood falling into his cup from the ceiling. When he looks up, he sees all his guards dead, so he realizes there's a disaster and decides he has to escape. Meanwhile, our hero is taking out the rest of the guards outside. And every time the boss tries to escape, he finds all the exits blocked. So he decides to hide, and when his bodyguard sees Skada, he grabs him to finish him off. But Skada cuts off his hand, then keeps going until he reaches the room where the boss is. And he decides to take him out with ease. After finishing his mission, he goes to his colleague Fujita, and Fujita asks him if he's decided to retire from the job. But Skada just greets him, then leaves. Later, as soon as he gets home, his daughter Rio sees him and runs to hug him, and he's happy to be back with his family. And before he goes to take a shower, he tells his wife that he'll look for a new job tomorrow. She's really happy and tells him they have to celebrate. A little later, while he's in his room, he hears Rio screaming, so he rushes out and finds a lot of people wearing scary masks. Then their leader says to him, "It's strange that a killer like you has such a beautiful family." So Skada asks him, "Who exactly are you?" The leader tells him that they are the ones who will rule the country in the coming period. Skada gets really angry when he sees one of them bothering his daughter, and he goes over to hit him. But another one of the guards threatens him with his wife, so he stays quiet and lets the guards beat him up. Rio tries to defend her father, but her mother takes her by the hand and keeps begging them to let her husband go. But the person who is beating Skada gets angry at her and kills her. Of course, Skada is completely shocked, so he tells his daughter to run away quickly, but she doesn't make it because the boss kills her immediately. After that, he tells him that there's a legend in Shingo that says a demon possesses someone every 50 years. And that demon is him, so they have to get rid of him, and he hits him as well right away. The next day, news spreads everywhere that Skada killed his wife and daughter, and then committed suicide. 12 years later, we discover that Skada didn't die, but his body was paralyzed, and that all this time he was in prison. And today is the day he's released from prison, and Fujita is waiting for him. At the same time, we move to a new character, the town mayor, Sono. He's in a press conference with the reporter, telling her that he's going to make this town the strongest in Japan, especially after the Moroya complex, which he plans to build in just 6 months. Then one of the journalists, named Kamana, asks him, "You keep launching projects and saying they'll make the town better. But what about all these mysterious crimes and murders happening here? What's going on with that?" So Sono tells him that these are just rumors and there's no evidence for them. Now, let's go back to Sakata. Fujita takes him to an area where he can live, shows him a small apartment, and tells him to stay there for a while until he finds him a better place. He also asks his assistant to take care of Sakata. But Sakata isn't interested in any of that because he can't feel anything at all. After Fujita leaves, the assistant starts taking care of him, cleaning him up and feeding him. At night, he takes him out for a walk. Then, as they're coming out of the house, suddenly the Yakuza gang's guard, whose hand Sakata had cut off a long time ago, shows up and hits him on the arm to get his revenge. Of course, Sakata's assistant gets scared and runs away. When the guard sees that there's no reaction at all from Sakata, he gets even angrier, leaves him, and walks away. Meanwhile, the journalist is also looking for evidence to prove that what he's saying isn't just rumors. So, they go and meet one of the Yakuza gang members whom Sakata took down 12 years ago, and he tells him about the new gang that Gomi has founded. But no one knows what they look like because they wear masks. At that moment, Kamana also feels that Mayor Sono is involved in the matter. And suddenly, while he's getting information from the man, someone from Gomi's gang shows up and kills the journalist. He then hands the Yakuza gang member a gun and forces him to kill himself under threat. Now we move to Fujina, who's sitting and playing while thinking about what happened to his friend. He remembers the day of Sakata's retirement, and how he was the one who went and told Gomi's gang, which is why they went to his house and killed him, even though they had promised Fujita that they wouldn't hurt him. Suddenly, while he's thinking, he hears his phone ring and finds out what happened to Sakata, so he decides to rush over to him. At the same time, one of Gomi's gang members finds out that Sakata is in the hospital, so he decides to go there too. Then we go to Sakata in the hospital, and the person who was the cause of his family's destruction enters his room, wearing a mask. It turns out that he's the chief of police in the city, and he was able to get in without any trouble. Then he starts mocking him and injects a poison syringe into his fore. But when Sakata sees him, he gets furious. And the shocking thing is that, in a strange way, his body manages to get up after being paralyzed. He starts beating the man up, finishes him off, and leaves the hospital walking on his own 2 feet. At that moment, Fujita arrives and is so shocked by what he sees that he can't even speak, and he quietly takes him with him. After that, we go to a place that looks like a factory, where Gomi's men are collecting strange things to use in making drugs. After that, when they find out that Sakata is still alive, they call Fujita and tell him to finish him off immediately and bring his body here. And sure enough, after a while, Fujita arrives at the factory with Sakata's body, brings it into them, and is about to leave. But the shock is that this was all a setup so Sakata could get into the factory and take out those who destroyed his family. He starts killing anyone he sees in front of him. At that moment, Fujita is supposed to leave the factory, but the guard stops him and shoots at him when he realizes he's a traitor. But Fujita manages to save himself and kills the guard. Meanwhile, Sakata is still taking out anyone in his way. Finally, he manages to reach the floor where the factory owner is. But when he looks out the window, he sees the factory owner wearing a mask and standing outside. Then the owner presses a button and blows up the entire factory, thinking he's finished off Sakata. He calls the boss to tell him the mission is done. But he's shocked when he sees Sakata coming out of the factory without a scratch. So he gets terrified and tries to run away, but then a car comes and hits him. And we find out that it was Fujita who did it to atone for his sins. Then Sakata tells him that he was with them too. So Sakata goes and finishes off Fujita as well. After that, he takes the factory owner and keeps torturing him to find out who the boss is. But the factory owner refuses to talk. Suddenly, his phone rings and we find out that the boss is calling him. Sakata answers the call, and the boss tells him, "By the way, your daughter is still alive, and the money we make from drugs is what we use to develop the country." Of course, Sakata is shocked by what he's hearing. And the shock is even greater because the boss turns out to be the mayor. Then he tells Sakata to leave the factory owner alone, but he finishes him off easily. The next day, the news is in an uproar over what happened. They say that Sakata is the reason for all of this, and that he also died in the factory explosion. And in the middle of all this, Sakata's daughter appears, and it turns out that the man from the gang who killed her mother is the same one who raised her and brought her up. After that, we see a police officer named Taki coming into his house, but he's shocked when he finds Sakata sitting inside. And we discover that Sakata once saved this officer's life a long time ago, and since then, he's been helping him with any information. He starts telling him everything he knows about the Gumi gang, and says that there's also a big company in town that's connected to the gang. Sakata doesn't waste any time and heads straight there. And of course, it's obvious what he's going to do. After a while, when he's finished off everyone there and is heading out to see the owner of the company, he finds that there's a whole floor that's actually an apartment. When he goes inside, he finds the place filled with pictures of the girl from when she was little until she grew up, and he gets even angrier when he sees photos of her with the company owner, who has made her believe he's her father, while he's looking through the pictures. She's actually hiding behind the couch, scared of him. Suddenly, the company owner comes in, so Sakata goes straight for him and attacks him, and Ryo takes advantage of the opportunity and immediately escapes. After that, the two of them keep fighting. When Sakata hears the company owner's voice, he's shocked and remembers that it's the same voice as the man who killed his wife, which makes him even angrier. But suddenly, she comes back with her bow in hand and shoots at her father, who is shocked that his own daughter is afraid of him and standing against him. The company owner takes advantage of the situation and pushes Sakata, making him fall out the window. When he gets up to look for him, he's surprised to see that Sakata has escaped in a car. and we find out that the police officer was the one who took him to help him escape. After that, he takes him to a deserted place to treat his wounds, and while he's treating him, he notices his phone ringing. It turns out to be the boss, and he asks the officer to give the phone to Sakata. He tells him, if you want to see your daughter again, you have to come to the compound so we can settle our score. Of course, Sakata doesn't waste any time. He grabs his things, heads to his warehouse, takes his cleaver, and changes his clothes. Then he heads to the compound, and when he arrives there in his car, all the guards get ready to take him out. When they open the car, it turns out to be empty. Sakata did this to trick them with his plan. Then he appears from behind them and takes them all out. He fights them off with anything he can get his hands on. He keeps going like this for quite a while. And every time he goes up a floor, a group of guards shows up, and he takes them out with his cleaver until he reaches the right floor. There, he finds the man who raised his daughter, so he starts beating him furiously, injures his eye, and hits him on the head. Thinking he's dead, he leaves him and walks away. After that, he's about to go up to the next floor, but he finds an army of guards coming at him. He's exhausted, but he reminds himself that he has to save his daughter. And that's the reason he takes them all out, one by one, until he reaches the place where Rio is. She's scared of him, so he tries to remind her that he's her father. Suddenly, one of the gang members appears behind him and hits him on the head, causing him to immediately lose consciousness. After a while, he wakes up and finds himself in another place, standing in front of Mayor Sono, who says to him, I told you before about the legend of the demon. He starts telling him the story again while drawing his sword to kill Rio. But suddenly, the officer bursts in and takes out all the guards present. Amidst all the chaos, Sakata tells Rio to escape immediately. At that moment, she remembers that he really is her father because he said the exact same thing to her when she was little, so she gets up and quickly escapes with the officer. As she's leaving, she sees all the dead guards and realizes her father did all this for her. So she decides to go back, but the officer is scared and decides to run away. We go back to Sakata, and there's only one of Sono's men left. This guy keeps attacking Sakata because he's huge and really strong. But Sakata manages to overpower him, stabs him with a knife, and throws him down the stairs, where he lands on top of Sono, and he takes off his mask. And we find out that this person is actually Sono's twin brother, and his name is Gene. Gene has a burn on his face from when he was a child. And then we flash back to the past, to when Sono met Gene, and we learn that they had been separated for a long time. When they reunited, their father asked them to look out for each other, so Gene became so attached to Sono that he would even kill for him. We return to the present, and Sono is angry because of his brother, so he goes to put on his mask and starts attacking Sakata. And every time Sakata tries to hit Sono, it's actually Sono who ends up hitting him. At one point, Sakata tries to hit Sono, so Sono goes and cuts off his hand. But Sakata doesn't give up and keeps going like that for quite a while. Until, with one of those hits, he manages to strike Sono and finishes him off. At that moment, she arrives at her father and is shocked by how he looks. Suddenly, the man who raised her appears and shoots at Sakata, trying to get Layla back again. But she remembers that he was the reason her mother died, so she immediately pulls away from him. Sakata takes advantage of the moment and hits him on the head from behind, finishing him off for good. After that, he collapses to the ground, so she goes to hug him and begs him not to die in her arms. But he tells her, I'm sorry I couldn't protect your mother, but I'm glad I was able to protect you. And then he dies instantly. After that, the police arrive and everything is in chaos. The shock is that Gene, Sono's brother, was still alive, and Rio is sitting alone, thinking about what to do, and decides that she has to run away. A year later, Gene reappears but under the name Sono, and he says that the burn on his face is because of his fight with Skata. So he appears as a hero who saved the country. After that, he goes to the temple where his brother used to worship and performs the same rituals as him. But suddenly, Rio shows up and kills him with her arrow, then leaves him and walks away. Give the video a like if you enjoyed it, my friend, and don't forget to share your opinion with us in the comments, and let us know which movies you'd like us to summarize. And please subscribe to our channel so you can catch all our upcoming summaries.